It is me in that fucking video. But it wasn't me.
Know you gonna let me in through this ride. I know you gonna let me.
He immediately started to bring me and the guys together in the...
Young Buck is one of the rare rappers that the American court system takes a special interest in. He used to be the monster who burned through the lyrics of Straight Outta Cashville, but she appeared on legal news with alarming frequency. Bankruptcy. The IRS came right to the door. Assets evaporate. During those nights in solitary confinement, everything hit so fast that even those who had stood by Buck's side had to say, his life is more scandal-ridden than a single release. From the heights of G-Unit Young, Buck fell straight into a legal maze where debts piled up and endless legal documents accumulated. But that wasn't even the darkest part. A curse that has haunted young Buck for over 2 decades is still lurking persistent and increasingly dragging him into legal trouble. So what exactly is young Buck facing? And is there any way out of his miserable life? Watch until the end of the video, because the final secret is something that could make you lose faith in both humanity and the glamour of this industry. 1. Instinct never knows the law. The court has never looked at young Buck with respect. When he stood before them, they only saw an 8-year-old child living on instinct, a little one who grew up in Nashville in areas known only by one name, the Devil's Triangle. That child is David Brown, and his life has never started on a straight path. Seafright, J.C. Napier, South 7, were places where if you lived in Nashville at that time, just hearing the name would tell you, there's no future there. For many people, they are just 3 names. But for Buck, those were the opening 3 chapters of a book that very few people lived to read to the final page. At Seafright, it learned to listen for footsteps in the alley to know whether to run or duck. At J.C. Napier, it learned to distinguish between someone who is simply hungry and someone who is bloodthirsty. In South 7, it learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes you can get caught up in something you didn't choose, even when you're not doing anything. And because the family kept moving around, as if they were hiding from someone, that 8-year-old boy quickly got used to the idea that nowhere was truly safe. He became the type of person who every time the door closed would glance to see if anyone was standing outside. That defensive personality, which the streets saw as a skill, later became a fatal weakness in the eyes of the court. But life doesn't always throw boulders at it. Amidst those gray patches, Buck still tried to find a way to earn some honest money. He pumps gas for people to earn a few dollars in tips, mows the lawns for a few houses in the neighborhood, and washes cars for anyone willing to pay. It's not a lazy or resigned child. It's just a baby who had no choice but to grow up earlier than everyone around them. But the streets still followed it, like a shadow. Each place it lived taught it something different, and all those things combined into an instinct, an immediate decisive, sometimes overly decisive reaction. A useful instinct on the street, but dangerous in the real world. In that chaos, music emerged as the only escape. The moment the little guy opened his mouth to freestyle for the first time, his friends immediately sensed something different about him. He battled anyone who dared to step up, and each match made the crowd in the area nod more. From a kid running around washing cars, Buck gradually became the rapper in the neighborhood, and then the smooth rapper in the Nashville underground. Just then, a crazy opportunity appeared. And strangely enough, the biggest opportunities in life often start with what seem like the silliest things. Buck and his friend Lil Jimmy accidentally found BG's CD, Chopper City, and on the back of the disc was the phone number for Cash Money Records. The 2 kids knew nothing about the show. Booking process didn't know their upcoming endeavor could be seen as childish, but they still called. And they didn't just call. They said straight out that they wanted to book Cash Money to perform in Nashville for about $5,000. The story sounds like a joke, but fate sometimes has a strange sense of humor. Cash Money actually confirmed the performance. That show never happened, but it was precisely what didn't happen. That opened the door to something bigger. Buck and Jimmy got to meet the powerful people at Cash Money in person. Birdman listened to Buck freestyle, had Buck stand next to Lil Wayne, and in the eyes of those 2 children, one saw something the streets could never create: hope. To grasp that ray of hope, Buck did what many feared most. He dropped out of school at the age of 14. It's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I like to play. It understood that if it wanted to escape Nashville to break free from the Seafright, J.C. Napier, South 7 Cycle, it had only one path music. Don't judge the decisions of a child living in a project area. When your future is always behind a door that's only slightly ajar. But the dream isn't as beautiful as imagined. After many years at Cash Money, not a single song by Buck was released. He was pushed aside watching Wayne Juvenile and BG fly into the sky one by one while he remained still. By 1999, Buck couldn't take it anymore. He went back to Nashville and started over. No label, no backing, no one calling anyone. Only the kid who once stood before Birdman and Wayne is now struggling in the indie scene like a warrior who has to mend his own shield and forge his own sword. But life sometimes rewards those who don't give up. On August 22, 2000, Buck and DT released the album Thug Until the End, a handmade product sold from a car, self-pressed discs, self-run shows. And yet, the album made it onto Billboard number 34 R&B, number 17 Independent. For an unknown rapper from Nashville, that's not success. That's a declaration. But Nashville isn't big enough to sustain that momentum. The home shot nearly killed Buck, forcing him to choose either continue living the old way and die young, or decisively return to the studio. It chose the music, choose the future, choose the last opportunity. Fall sessions in Memphis with DJ Paul Small shows underground connections that outsiders would never know about. All of this propelled Buck to the most important place in his life, the 2002 tour bus. That very night, that's the right city. When 50 Cent got into the car at a time when the name 50 Cent was making New York buzz, no one expected that a Buck track playing for fun would change everything. A domino effect began to unfold. From that crowded bus, Buck would head straight for the G-Unit Spotlight Platinum Records The Stage Money, and then the tragedies he could never have imagined. And when a street personality enters the music industry and encounters someone like 50 Cent, conflict is inevitable. But what no one expected was that this collision would become the source of one of the biggest black legends that Young Buck's fans still talk about to this day. 2. Conflict with 50 Cent and explosive rumors. Young Buck has a criminal past, yes. But to understand why his life spiraled so far, we have to go back to one person, 50 Cent. Fate brought 50 to him as a ticket out of poverty, and then turned him into a shadow that cast over Buck's career. The person who once lifted you up is also the one who made the subsequent fall the most painful. The conflict didn't start when Buck got into legal trouble. It originated the day he left G-Unit. Buck insists he never received a royalty check, while early fans are shocked because they witnessed Buck's fiery bars during the group's heyday. By the 2014 reunion with the controversial 50,000 advance, Buck said he had never received a penny. 50 replied in a voice as cold as steel he paid in full. Buck is wrong. Buck spends too much, he's wasteful. Always high, so he's not sober enough to remember how much he uses. 50 even emphasized that Buck was overpaid during his time with G-Unit, a statement that divided the community, with one side claiming Buck was exploited and the other saying he was poor because he ruined his own life. Older members of the community also bluntly stated that artists who abuse stimulants often spend without remembering, and when their pockets are empty, they say anything to save themselves. In an atmosphere as tense as a stretched string, 50 used social media as his personal battlefield. Memes, Photoshopped sarcasm, and even attacks on Buck's personal life and gender appeared in rapid succession, as if every day were a barrage of artillery fire. For Buck, who grew up in Nashville's street honor culture, being publicly humiliated like this hurt more than any physical blow. The peak was in December 2024, when Buck reluctantly admitted on the 50th podcast episode that 50 had once helped him pay off his taxes. Just a few seconds of the clip were enough to set the internet ablaze. Team 50 said Buck was lying from the start, while Team Buck argued that he was forced to speak to keep the peace. By April 2025, when Buck was arrested for violating his bail conditions, 50 rubbed salt in the wound by posting his mugshot and mocking his appearance. From here, a wave of analysis, criticism, and condemnation erupted every place. Many longtime Buck fans and neutral observers directly call 50 a bully, someone who uses power to stifle those he once called brothers. Articles, blogs, and podcasts are all dissecting the issue, with many directly asking, who is the real snake? One side says 50 is too manipulative, too cruel, taking financial advantage to weigh down Buck's life. Others say Buck destroyed himself. He was reckless, undisciplined, and spent money like it was water. Someone with too much experience handling the situation. Another person is so impulsive that they open the trapdoor themselves. Those two personalities colliding, an explosion was inevitable. The drama intensified as one side, Buck, struggled with bankruptcy, and the IRS seized assets, while the other, 50, announced the construction of G-Unit Studios, a multi-million-dollar facility spanning nearly 1 million square feet. That stark contrast led the community to ask, how can Buck be so broke he can't even afford to get by, while 50 is building a studio empire? Is there anything suspicious? And from that, 3 major rumors formed that 50 was keeping the advance money preventing Buck from releasing music. That 50 demanded Buck repay $250,000–300,000 USD, causing him to go bankrupt just as the IRS was tightening the screws. And even some fans speculated that G-Unit Studios was built with money Buck never received. There is no evidence, no papers. But in hip-hop culture, what lasts becomes folklore, a kind of urban legend that listeners believe because it sounds right. But if we only focus on the drama with 50, we'll miss the most dangerous thing, Buck's own legal record, something that stifles his freedom more powerfully than any Instagram feud. Buck is not a first-time offender. Ho So Kwa Ankeo Daigon 20 Numtavu Stubbing Tai Vibe Awards 2004 Jen Antulien Bang 18 Thang Vi So Hu Sung Tri Feb Num 2012 Jen Kach Vi Pham Kwanche 2016 Roy Len Trui Na 2019. In the eyes of the judge, he was no longer an artist. He was a law-abiding impossibility. Such a profile means that just a small slip would cause freedom to collapse immediately. And then the worst really happened, the 2020 case. The case that even Buck's lawyer admitted that if the main charges were proven, young Buck might never see freedom again. And that's the door that leads to the next chapter, where everything is no longer about 50 Cent or rumors, but about something that could bury young Buck's entire life, the 2020 case. 3. Death sentence. A rapper can be brought down by a diss track by a punchline that destroys their stage image. But young Buck is different. He doesn't lose on stage, not losing in the studio, not inferior to any rapper. He's on the verge of collapse, facing something colder than anything else. A gun he was never allowed to hold, and a string of accusations that could bury the rest of his life behind bars. Fans used to say, Buck had the heart of a Southern warrior, an unmistakable voice, and an energy that no one could imitate. But the law doesn't care about charisma, doesn't care about legacy, and doesn't care that you once broke sales records with G-Unit. The law only looks at the record, and in 2020, that record weighed him down like a stone tied to Buck's feet, pulling him down into a hole that not everyone could climb out of. That year, Buck faced 4 extremely serious charges, 4 blows that could turn anyone from artist to criminal in an instant. First is domestic assault, which the American media never overlooks and always pushes to the top of the news. Fans were shocked to hear the news because the person who once rapped about loyalty, brotherhood, and hustle is now appearing in police records with cold, lifeless lines. But that was just the surface of the nightmare. The second charge is vandalism over 000, a significant amount that reflects the severity the court believes the actions caused. At that point, many fans began to worry, if everything is just personal disputes, why is the damage figure so high? This creates a gray area that piques the community's curiosity, but also makes Buck's image even harder to erase. Thirdly, and making the situation worse, was the triple violation of the protection order. Once can be considered a misunderstanding, twice can be considered careless, but 3 times. In the court's eyes, this is a sign that a person is unable to or unwilling to comply with legal requirements. Longtime Buck fans know he's always been the type to react first and think later, a trait ingrained in him since his Nashville childhood. But the court doesn't read circumstances, they read actions. And at this point, they marked Buck as a difficult case. But the most serious charge was the 4th, a felon possessing a gun. This is no longer a matter of impulse, no longer the heat of an argument. This is a serious federal crime. For someone with a felony record like Buck, being found in possession of or having access to a weapon could result in a sentence of several years in prison. That's why the legal community says if the fourth charge is proven, Buck's chances of being set free are very low. This is the point that makes fans shudder, because they understand that if Buck falls this time, there will be no more comebacks, no mixtape, no tour, no reunion, nothing. But it's also undeniable that a fact is making many fans tired. They loved Buck. They understood his erratic personality. They knew he grew up surrounded by violence and lack of control. But more and more, they had to face a reality. Buck's personal life was making more headlines than his music. Every time fans anticipate a new single, they are met with a scandal report. Every time Buck promised to drop an album, they'd hear news that he'd just violated a restraining order or gotten into a new problem. And over time, that frustration didn't stem from them falling out of love with Buck, but because they felt like they were watching an artist strangle their own last chance, as if the creative energy of old was trapped within the very dramas he carried with him throughout his life's journey. And then the trial, which was supposed to decide the fate, was postponed until January 12, 2026. A day might seem far away, but for anyone who has ever been caught in the legal system, it's a day that hangs over your head like a rope. Nearly 6 years of waiting for a verdict. 6 years living under surveillance and anxiety, under the scrutiny of the media and the public. For 6 years, fans watched him struggle through life trying to revive his career, but always with a legal shadow looming right behind him. At that point, many people felt Buck was not just a failed artist. He was like a man being suffocated by the past, by wrong decisions, and by things he couldn't control. What hurts fans the most isn't the fact that Buck was charged, but rather, it's the fact that many people believe all those missteps stem from the same root cause: the conflict between street life and the expectations of the legal system. Buck grew up in an environment where quick reactions saved lives, but the court demanded absolute reason and control. Nashville creates warriors, but American law demands perfect citizens. And entering 2020, those two worlds collided, crushing him. The news reports legal documents, leaked calls, and strained relationships all surrounded Buck like an inescapable wall. But the biggest tragedy isn't those 4 charges. What makes the story even more cruel is that while awaiting trial, Buck continued to re-offend. That was the moment fans understood. The problem wasn't just 2020, it was Nashville. It was childhood. It was the nature that had long programmed him. And that's also when things started to spiral out of control, leading to the next dark chapter. 4. Chain violation. Buck had stood on stage before thousands, but the period from 2022 to 2025 found him facing only one thing: a cold, harsh legal system that never forgives repeated offenses. This is no longer the story of an artist in trouble. This is the moment life pulls you back to where it thinks you belong. And for fans who have been with Buck since the Straight Outta Cashville days, seeing their idol decline, like this is both painful and unbelievable. And it makes them wonder, how could someone who once had everything fall into this legal loop? While awaiting the major trial in 2026, the court granted Buck bail, hoping he would strictly adhere to the conditions. But life isn't a miracle, and Buck, a true product of Nashville's street blocks, instinctively erupted again. He violated the no-contact order, which was a clear red line drawn by the court. Just crossing this limit once is considered a serious warning by the system. But Buck didn't just step over once. He stepped through many times, as if he still carried within him the ability to react faster than he thought, the kind of survival instinct he had learned from a young age. For the court, it's no longer a mistake. That's a sign of someone who can't control themselves. Then, there was the victim's car being vandalized in 2022, an impulsive, hot-headed emotional act not at all calculated. No one knows exactly what triggered that moment, but it was like a powerful blow to the last bit of faith the system had in him. You're awaiting trial. You're being watched. You know, every action is being scrutinized, but you still can't control yourself. To the court, this behavior is like a statement. He can't stop. Not yet. While on bail, Buck missed several supervision appointments. Those meetings for many people were just a formality. But for the court, it's a way to see if you still want to live outside of society. Each missed opportunity is like a closed door. An ordinary person might think, he's probably busy, Or, he probably forgot. But the legal system doesn't listen to those reasons. It just says in the record, non-compliant, not serious, no change. The court began to require GPS monitoring, an electronic ankle bracelet. A heartbreaking image for anyone who has ever seen Buck standing next to 50 Cent Eminem or DJ Paul in front of millions of people. Now every step he takes is recorded. Any deviations are reported to the supervisory body. For fans, this is a truly painful moment. Seeing a rapper who once represented freedom, the wild spirit of the South, now having to wear a GPS is like seeing a bird that once soared, now caged in iron bars. And the worst part is, he got himself into that situation. And finally, the court labeled him with a phrase that would silence any lawyer patterned non-compliant offender. It sounds dry, but in legal language, it has a single meaning. This person cannot, or does not want to, comply with the law. This is a sticker that few people can remove. It's not just based on one violation. It relies on a long, continuous, repetitive series of actions demonstrating a pattern of behavior that the court believes is deeply ingrained in the offender's nature. And for Buck, that weighed even more heavily because his past contained so many black marks. A 2004 criminal record, a 2012 prison sentence, a 2016 probation violation, and a 2019 warrant. When everything was put on the table, the court didn't see the star who once broke Billboard records. The court only sees a man with a 20-year history of being unable to stand still before the law. Even more painfully, fans look back on these years and say, Buck seems like someone who's been beaten down by life and lost his way. As he tried to stand up, another mistake pulled him down. When he tried to make money, he was blocked by an old contract. When he tried to keep the family safe, he got caught up in violence again. The cycle repeats itself as if it were a destiny preordained since Nashville. And fans felt even more heartbroken when they thought about this paradox. While Buck was constantly going up to court down to jail, struggling to pay off debts, losing his home, and losing his freedom, 50 Cent was building a new empire and constructing a studio as large as a small industrial park. Those two images placed side by side made many people feel that something was off, even though no one knew where the problem lay. A person is free to spread their wings. A person's world shrinks to the radius of GPS. At this point, Buck is no longer a rapper. He became a prime example of how the legal system treats those with too many blemishes on their record. The court is no longer waiting for an explanation. The court only looks at the repeated behavior. And when they lose patience, they don't speak loudly. They didn't scream. They simply sent a very clear signal, like a gentle tap on the wrist of a stubborn child 30 days in jail. But the fans understand, and the court understands, this is not a punishment. This is just a warning. A reminder that next time, it won't be 30 days anymore. Next time, it will be handcuffs, a real sentence, and metal doors closing behind me. And that's the segue into the next part. When the court lost patience, this final signal wasn't just meant to deter. It was a silent declaration that if Buck took another wrong step, his path to freedom would close. For good. 5. Final sentence, 30 days in prison. It sounds light, like a pat on the back from the law, like, wake up. But for young Buck, those 30 days felt like the trailer for a long movie quietly preparing to be released in January 2026. The day when all decisions about his freedom would be put on the table, lined up alongside charges as heavy as boulders. He wasn't sent to jail this time for the main case, not for gun possession, or the domestic violence charges that are pending trial. No, he was imprisoned for a simple but deadly reason: not complying with bail. A normal person would hear that and think, well, they missed a few supervisory meetings, it's just a minor offense. But in the language of the court, for someone with a long criminal record like Buck, that's no longer a mistake. It was interpreted as a clear message: you can't control your behavior. He can't follow the rules. And if he continues like that, the real judgment will come. Just as the judge coldly warned during the hearing. The court does not judge based on emotions. The court looked at the records. And Buck's record in the last 10 years is as thick as a bankrupt company's documents violations of protection orders, property damage, recidivism while on bail, and possession of a weapon while being a felon. Just one small error, and the system will see it as a recurring sign. And for Buck, the mistake wasn't just a mistake, it was a pattern. He used to brace himself against every storm in his career, having his contract frozen, having his money seized, having the IRS come knocking at his door, and being attacked by 50 Cent on social media. But the legal storm is different. It doesn't need a diss track. It doesn't need anyone behind it. It only takes one word, relapse, to trigger a whole chain of consequences. The bitterest thing is that even this time, the sentence is only 30 days. It still makes the whole community look at him with different eyes. For fans who lived through the G-Unit era of dominance, who saw Buck take the stage with energy that seemed ready to explode the entire block, those 30 days felt like a slap in the face to their fondest memories. They know you came from Nashville with nothing but the clothes on your back. They know you were caught between label drama in conflict with 50 and dragged down by debt. But in that deepest abyss, there are still those who believe Buck is the real one, the one who can return from any abyss. So when news broke that he was detained for violating bail, fans were disappointed, sympathetic, and angry all at once. Some people blame him for not knowing how to save himself. Some people blame the entire American legal system, where a person who has committed a crime can almost never escape that image. And there are also people who blame 50. Because just as Buck was at his lowest, 50 Cent, who once called him brother, posted a sarcastic and mocking status. They didn't mention Buck by name, but everyone understood who they were taking a dig at. Tin 50 is still the same as always. If he doesn't like something, he'll say it directly, bluntly, and in a way that makes the other person feel like they can't get up. But for fans who still have some fond memories of the old G-Unit, that action felt like kicking a man when he's down. The comments under 50's post erupted like a dam, breaking. Those defending 50 said Buck brought it on himself, while those sympathetic to Buck thought 50 was stepping on the old man to get attention. Who's right? Who's wrong? It's not as important as one fact that division further locks Buck's image into a negative spiral. Then the broader hip-hop community. Comments like, Buck never learns, he ain't coming back, and that's it for him, echoed frequently. But alongside that are more choked, more real voices, from people who once lived lives similar to Buck's. Those who have been in and out of prison, who have broken promises to the court, and who have let their emotions lead them astray. They understand something outsiders don't. For those who grew up in chaos, adhering to discipline is never easy. Sometimes just one day of mental breakdown, a small incident, and wrong actions immediately erupt like a reflex. And Buck, whether a famous rapper or an ordinary man, ultimately couldn't escape his ingrained instincts. Those 30 days also held another meaning. They were the court's test card, a test to see if Buck still has control of himself. If you're good, the court might consider leniency at the 2026 hearing. But if you make one more small mistake, no violence needed, no weapons, just one violation of your bail conditions, the court will close. And when that door closes with a file as thick as yours, it could be closed for a very long time. Fan understands this. They understand because they have witnessed relatives, friends, and siblings in the neighborhood being locked up for repeating minor mistakes. That's why they worried about Buck in a very human way. It's not because of their idols, but because they know that real street dudes sometimes don't know how to live within the law. And that's what will take away their freedom, not the drama between the rappers. But perhaps what hurt them the most wasn't the 30 days in prison, but the sight of Buck walking out of jail, while in another corner of America, 50 Cent was cutting the ribbon to open a massive studio empire. Two destinies once shared the same stage. Now one side is struggling to survive, while the other is becoming a tycoon. And that's when the final question became clearer than ever, between someone fighting for freedom and someone expanding their empire. What truly pushed them in such opposite directions, and what ending awaits them when their paths no longer cross. 6. Freedom and empire. One person is trying to hold on to their last bit of freedom, while the other is building an empire large enough for Hollywood to take notice. Between them is a distance that G-Unit fans once aptly described, "It's a chasm no one can jump over anymore." And as 2026 approaches, that chasm grows wider. For young Buck, this is no longer about fame or old grudges with 50 Cent. This is the cruel question that anyone who has ever been caught in the grip of the law understands. Will I ever be free again? He was no longer standing before the door of his career, but before the legal door, which shrank a little more each time he reoffended. Every small mistake, every violation of the bail conditions, every incident was recorded like a knife slowly cutting away at his chances of freedom. By now, that door is only open enough for a desperate glance to peek through the crack. While Buck struggled with the GPS ankle monitor and the vice-like surveillance schedule, 50 Cent was on the opposite side of the spectrum. Not only does 50 dominate rap, but he's also making his mark in film, television, and business. G-Unit Studios at nearly 1 million square feet is a statement that 50 Cent is no longer playing on the hip-hop stage. He's entering the arena of iconic producers. And when these two images are placed side by side, one person bound by the court, the other soaring like a rocket, fans can't help but wonder, since when did these two who once stood together become such opposing fates? Anyone who loved G-Unit back in the day understands this pain well. They used to see Buck as being on par with the biggest names. He has a Nashville voice, an undeniable street quality, and a hunger and passion that fans always respect. But they also witnessed him gradually slipping into a series of repeated mistakes as if programmed. Every time he tries to get back up, the next fall is deeper than the last. The court added a clause. Police added charges. The public became even more suspicious. This dichotomy, one side praised as a strategist, the other categorized as systematically non-compliant, has left fans obsessed and confused. They didn't ask to blame, but because they wanted to understand, did Buck ruin his own life? Or did someone let go of him at his weakest moment? Fee 50 says Buck is impulsive and undisciplined. Fee Buck believes he is being held back, put in a difficult position. But regardless of which side you're on, everyone can see clearly the distance between the two people is now irreparable. When one person is falling and the other is flying, the falling person always looks self-destructive, even if someone else let go first. But this story isn't simply about one person being wrong and the other being right. These are two paths formed from two completely different environments. 50 benefited from steel-disciplined business logic and foresight. Buck carried with him the indelible scars of Nashville, and the legal system sees that more clearly than anyone else. It records your every action into a pattern, a recurring model. And to any judge, that pattern has only one meaning: to punish severely to prevent recidivism. That's what's truly scary. Not 50 Cent, not the music industry. And it was the legal system itself which was slowly closing in on Buck. Now, as the 2026 deadline approaches, no one dares to predict anything. Lawyers can argue, fans can hope, but the legal record doesn't. It only knows how to add up numbers. Each violation is a minus. Each missed meeting is a red point. Each wrong action is another heavy brick on the scale. When the scales tip completely, the verdict will fall. Buck's fans understand that more than anyone else. They listened to Straight Outta Cashville and believed someone like you was worth saving. But looking at the situation today, they also understood Buck's light of freedom was shrinking day by day. And when the gavel of Court 2026 falls, that light could be extinguished completely. They don't know if you'll make it, but they knew one thing for sure. The distance between young Buck and freedom had never been so close.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and the truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.